Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while since I've seen a lot of you, mainly because I've been off enjoying the summer, or rather what little of the summer we've had. So what you see today is we're off on a parts picking mission. Been looking for a synchromesh gearbox for the Blue 500 for a little while, and they came on the 126, derivatives of the 126. Most of the ones you find come off a 126 with a 650 engine. However, I was quite lucky to have stumbled across one for sale only about half an hour's drive from where I live, and it actually comes off a 500R, which has the same engine as the early 126. It's a 595cc, and the reason why I've decided to go for this one is not only was it a nice competitive price, but as you'll see when I pick it up later on, coming off a 500R has quite a few advantages off picking up a gearbox off a 650. For a start, it's got drive shafts which are the right length. Will need a bellhousing swap, and coming from a running driving car as well, it means it has known provenance, and a lot of the ones that you see for sale on eBay could have come from anywhere, and you don't really know whether they're good or just good for parts before you strip them down and have a little look. Now, by all accounts, this one has a noisy first gear, which doesn't really bother me too much because I've seen photos of the inside and it really looks like there's no missing teeth, so it's possibly just that it's had the hardening coating, or the hardened outside layer of the teeth worn through, which means that it's going to be a little bit noisy. However, relatively cheap actually to swap in a complete new lay shaft, and still come out a lot cheaper than buying an unknown gearbox. So we will have a little look and see what this looks like once I get it home. Okay, so we've got the gearbox back out the car now, and we'll have a little look around. You can tell that it is a 126 gearbox because of the bell housing here, or the front half of the transaxle, because of the location of the starter motor which sits here. As it's going into a 500, I need to have the starter up here. So what we're going to need to do as part of the swap is to remove the front part here and swap the bell housing with the one from the 500. We also have, as this is off a 500R rather than the 126, we've got drive shafts at the right length. These are a step up in size from the ones that are already on there, so they're 18mm on there, these are 22mm, so a little bit stronger. Now, because this is a synchromesh box that's come off an early 126, a 594, which is the same engine that's in the Fiat 500R, which is actually what this came out of, you can tell the difference between this and the later boxes that come out of the 126s with the 650, because what you don't have on here, on the nose of this, where the selector rod goes in, is you don't have an electrical output for reverse lights, because there was no reversing lights on the 500. So that's the outside of the gearbox. Looks in pretty good condition. Now, as I said in the introduction, it does have a noisy first gear, so in a second we'll remove the cover plate, try and get a light in there, we'll have a little look at what's wrong, and I'll also point out some of the methods by which the synchromesh works, in case you haven't seen inside a synchromesh gearbox before. So let's have a little look inside here. If you've never taken the gearbox apart, it can look quite confusing and quite intimidating. However, there's not really a huge amount to it. These are all constant mesh gears, well, most of them are constant mesh gears. So what you have here, this is your input shaft. So this runs from there all the way to your clutch input there. And these gears are all part of a cluster set. So we have first, we have third, we have fourth, and second is in here. And then those are driven at engine speed, or the speed of the engine's running, speed that the clutch is turning. And what you have underneath is a lay shaft, and you might be able to see down here that fourth, for example, is in constant mesh with fourth here, and third is in constant mesh with third, and so on. But they're not actually fixed. So what happens is you have selector forks here which slide, focus on that side, synchromesh rings backwards and forwards to select which gear you want to lock to that lay shaft. So the way this differs in terms of a non-synchromesh gearbox, and again it's difficult to see, but if we look down here, each of your main driven gears has little dog clutches, forks, whatever you want to call them, little cones, and triangle teeth here. Okay, so the cone on the end here basically gets friction between it and the synchromesh ring, and it synchronizes the speed of the two gears that you're trying to change between, and these sort of triangle dog teeth on here will meet up with triangle teeth on the inside and will enable the gears to engage a lot better, so therefore you lose the crunching that you get in a crash box. So it's a bit hard to see in here, but that's roughly how a synchromesh box works. It synchronizes the speeds and allows the two gears to join together, and it's not the gears themselves that are sliding up and down. When you select the selector fork, what you are doing is you are sliding the synchro ring left or right to engage the gear that you want and lock it to the input shaft, with one exception, which is this one here. This is the first gear. Now first gear on these is not synchronized, and this is a slider gear, so this is not a fixed gear, and this has its own you see that's where the selector fork sits, the selector fork there, and you actually slide the first gear directly to engage to first gear on the input shaft here. In terms of how the gearing works, it's rather like a bicycle. So if you want a low gear in a bike, what you want is a small cog on your front bit where the pedals are, and you want a large one on the back where your wheels are. So there's your small input and there's your large output. The reason why this is noisy is, again, if I can get the light down here, the teeth on first gear here are not actually the correct shape. They should be little rectangles, but if we look at them from the top, basically the whole of the front part of the teeth is chipped. So that's going to be very noisy. Likewise on the input shaft here, again you can see this, all of these teeth have a lot of the hardened outside chipped away. All of the gear sets in here are case hardened, but a lot of the hard surface has been chipped away. It's a particularly bad one there, and again that's not going to help with the noise. But I suspect that the slider gear is the main cause of the issue. It's about a £30 part new. The other part that we have that's a slider gear is this is your reverse idler gear, and what it really does is it sits in between first and here, and it reverses the rotation of the gear, so it'll actually turn the output shaft in the opposite direction to the input shaft. So that's really what's wrong with this box. It's probably about £30 to get the new part and swap that in. If I wanted to change this cluster gear here, it's probably about another £90. And then I just need to rebuild it. Now, whilst I've never rebuilt one of these before, I have rebuilt sort of, you know, early 30s, 40s, 50s Ford gearboxes, and it's relatively similar. It's not a particularly complicated issue. If you want to know a method of identifying one of these gearboxes, this here, the 126, has finer mesh on these teeth. The 500 one has larger teeth on here and fewer of them, so the pitch on them is different. So, brief little walkthrough from that. That's what's wrong with it, that's how we're going to fix it, and it should run nicely when it's in there and no longer be noisy. So a very short video there, just a little parts picking exercise, something that will go on the car later on, but just to keep you up to speed as to what's going on with this project, in case anybody missed hearing about it. Until the next time, if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, hit me up with a message, and take care.